You got bags under your eyes. You, your digestive tract is slowly starting to bloat. Stool might be starting to float. Your skin just looks a little older, like it's not as vibrant. It looks a little more aged. So these are common symptoms of mold that take time to build up for someone, that are not the horrible life altering, you know it immediately kind of symptoms when somebody walks in your door. Or maybe it's your kids, they start acting a little bit more irritable. They have frequent urination or bedwetting, grinding of teeth over time after changing environments or after having a leak into your home.
What if aging isn't about slowing down, but leveling up? I'm Dr. Isaac Jones. This is the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. I'm Dr. Isaac Jones, and this episode is part of our exclusive series recorded at the Exponential Longevity Summit, a global gathering of cutting-edge health experts exploring the edge of human performance, health span, and longevity. Let's get into it.
All right, welcome everybody to today's episode. I'm Dr. Rudy Mueller, and I'm excited to introduce our guest, my friend, Dr. Jaban Moore, who's a doctor of chiropractic based out of Kansas City and is really making a huge impact through functional medicine, especially through his work virtually with clients, connecting with people all over the world and helping them overcome chronic health challenges that many struggle to before. And really, it began with his journey into functional medicine, which began at the age of 25 when it took a drastic turn. He was an award-winning college athlete, track and field, shot putter, and found himself unable to get out of bed, searching desperately for answers. And unfortunately, as many of us find, and as many of us have heard as clinicians, the conventional medical route just did not offer the answers that they wanted and offered more of a temporary Band-Aid solution. So eventually, Dr. Moore discovered the Lyme disease was the true underlying cause of his health struggles. And after going through a process of overcoming this complex infection, he made it his mission to help others uncover the root causes of their symptoms. So today, he specializes in treating individuals with chronic conditions that is contributed to or caused by Lyme disease, PANS, PANDAS, autism, parasitic infections, and environmental toxicity. So we're excited to have Dr. Moore on here today to discuss his story, his insights and expertise into how they impact longevity. So welcome and thank you, Dr. Jaban, for joining us.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me on here. I'm excited to do this interview today.
Yeah, it's great, man. And so, when we're talking about longevity and chronic conditions and the contributing and causal factors, environmental toxins comes up a lot. So in your experience, what are you seeing from an environmental toxin perspective that's really contributing to accelerated aging?
Well, aging has everything to do with energy production, mitochondria, damage to tissues, damage to telomeres, right? So for me, it goes, what in our environment is damaging us? What is causing our body to either actually have damage or take energy away from our normal daily function of recovering our muscles, recovering our joints, recovering our brain tissue, and putting it towards something else? So when you start looking at those questions from that perspective, for instance, mold toxicity, which is something I deal with on clients every single day. Mold toxicity is in 50 to 70% of homes. That's the estimate that came out of the EPA a few years ago. So that means that probably at least out of every two people listening, one has some mold toxicity they're dealing with. So it's extremely common, but most of us don't really realize it because mold toxicity, we think of seeing these black spots all over the wall or the ceiling. We think of it being really musty or like moist feeling inside of a home. So if it's not that, then we could really ignore it and we can really dive more into that if you want to go farther into that, because I want to talk about in the moment how mold affects you. Because when I'm running testing on people with mold toxicity, we see that in your organic acid test, it is the number one thing out of all toxins that reduces the function of your Krebs cycle, your ability to break down fat and make energy out of it, your ability to process and utilize a lot of the B vitamins. So I see all the time B12, B5, and B2, the absorption and then the usage of those vitamins getting wrecked when mold toxicity is getting in your body. So if Krebs cycle's off, you don't make energy. If B vitamins are off, you don't make energy because you don't have the cofactors that are the building blocks of not just making energy, but so many other things on top of that.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so when you have a toxin in your body that stops you from using energy, that creates significant inflammation and stress on top of that. So we have inflammation in your body, which is going to cause water retention, which is causing damage to tissues, which is causing your immune system to dysregulate on top of that. So I just keep adding more layers that mold keeps throwing at you. If you actually look up what mold is doing, the different types of mold, so there's many types of mold, just like there's many types of bacteria or parasites. Each mold mycotoxin can be toxic to different areas. So if you're having brain fog, there's several mycotoxins, which is the toxin for mold that can do that. If you're having body pain, there's several mycotoxins that can do that. So since we're just here at the beginning today, toxins, one is mold. It's the worst one that I see, the most common worst one, creates inflammation, immune suppression, aging, and energy degradation to your body. So that's the number one. And then I'm going to give number two, which is one that most people aren't going to think about. I know we could go into phthalates and plastics and which is like the BPAs. But I'm going to talk about uranium.
Mm.
Uranium and radon and radium. So radioactive elements that are natural in a lot of environments that can be in your groundwater, can be in your basement, can be in your house, can be in the ground, especially in certain areas around the world. It's so common that I was just randomly scrolling through the internet and an article from Yahoo came up and said 170 million Americans, that's half of our population, is drinking radioactive water. Well, and I go out on ewg.org and I just simply click around and Miami, Chicago, LA, major cities, if you look at their municipality through the EPA, it shows that there are levels of uranium in the water. And what does uranium do? Well, we know it when it comes to nuclear bombs. We know it when it comes to using radioactive elements for radiation whenever someone has, say, cancer. And we know that it's damaging. We know that it suppresses your immune system. It causes damage to tissues. It can cause burns to your skin or aging of your skin. It can wipe out your immune system, leading to candida yeast and bacterial overgrowth. So half of the people in the United States are dealing with radioactive elements in their water supply, not even counting their basements, their ground sources. And this is also causing significant aging and significant degradation to the body that's leading to other bigger problems.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, touching on the two very common looked and really, underappreciated causes of toxicity, therefore causes of inflammation and aging. So I appreciate that. I mean, you can almost tell when somebody walks into your clinic and is dealing with mold when it's a severe case. But I think that the underpinning of what you're saying here is that these are things that may not present or may not show in an actual presentation of a client to a physician, or the physician may not have any knowledge of, mold, mycotoxins, uranium toxicity, and that we need to dive a little bit deeper into the investigation process.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk symptoms for a moment. So you have symptoms of an extreme mold case. You are potentially bedridden, you're brain fogged, you ache, your body is in such a fight or flight. So it's in such a state of disarray or sympathetic overdrive. It depends on what words you want to use, right? So you're in such a bad state that your body starts attacking everything. So you end up with mast cell or chronic inflammatory response syndrome. These are the extreme versions of mold that, yeah, if you go to a Facebook site and it's about mold and see it, that's what you're going to see as the extreme. But that's not the normal. It's not the average, right? So if you look at the average, it could be as much as you just feel a little more tired, a little more run down, a little more overwhelmed after maybe you moved into this house. It was a slow onset over 6 months, 12 months. You don't recover quite as quickly. You got bags under your eyes. You your digestive tract is slowly starting to bloat. stool might be starting to float. Your skin just looks a little older, like it's not as vibrant. It looks a little more aged. So these are common symptoms of mold that take time to build up for someone, that are not the horrible life altering, you know it immediately kind of symptoms when somebody walks in your door. Or maybe it's your kids, they start acting a little bit more irritable. They have frequent urination or bedwetting, grinding of teeth over time after changing environments or after having a leak into your home. I'm thinking of all these people that live in Florida and they live during hurricane seasons, and their house was fine when they moved in. They did the mold testing, it was perfectly okay. Or people that are around Tornado Alley, that's where I'm in Kansas City, and their house didn't get taken out, but a few shingles got ruffled. Now water's coming in the house, and the health of their family over the next 2, 3 years, every time it rains, takes a hit because more moisture comes in, more water comes in, and we have these issues. So it's the children, it's the husband or the wife. But the scary thing about mold is this, that not everybody's going to be as sensitive as the other person. So the mistake that is made is, and this is so common, that the wife is starting to feel bad. She's starting to develop symptoms. She's thinking, oh, I'm just getting older. Oh, I just had a few kids. I'm a little more tired because I'm not sleeping as well. The kids are acting out, a little ADHD, a little ODD, or they're a little more defiant. But the school is just like, oh, just put them on a medication for that. And the wife is, oh, I'll drink a little more coffee, or get put on an antidepressant. But the husband feels okay, right? Fine.
Mhm.
The husband's not getting symptoms, so it can't be the house. It can't be that one leak that was in the roof. Where in reality, toxins toxins affect people differently. So if your bucket, your body's ability to adapt is more distressed than mine, then it may start weighing on you more than me. And if you're more anabolic, so you have more testosterone, more muscle mass, it takes a little bit longer for those toxins often to break you down. So men oftentimes are less reactive than women, and that's not in every case, but in many that I work with. And then finally, there's a lot of genetic markers. There's a gene called HLA-DR that's 25% of our population, and that 25% is much more susceptible to toxicity. They don't detox as well. So let's just say in this case, the man doesn't have that gene, the wife has that gene, and the children, maybe they got part of that turned on, or maybe they got MTHFR or COMT or VDR, which are different types of epigenetics that make you a little bit more susceptible to toxins. So, 50% of houses have mold, and 25% of all people are super susceptible to that. Not 25% of our population is talking about mold. So we know that there's a lot of people out there that are being misdiagnosed with a lot of different things, whether that's weight loss intolerance, depression, anxiety, fatigue, overwhelm, burnout, that it's actually not those things. Those are just the effects that mold is having on their body.
Yeah, right, right. I think it's such an important piece that you bring up, is that the genetic SNPs can play a factor into the size of the bucket that a person has, right? Their ability to detoxify these things, and then how much of it they can handle. And so from a symptom perspective, it makes a lot of sense that, mold can impact the immune system, create inflammation, cause problems with potentially, creating even cancers to develop because it's downregulating the immune system. So from understanding the symptoms, I think it leads perfectly into, well, how the heck does a person know if they are being exposed to mold? You mentioned organic acid testing. What other things do you look at or test?
It depends on the person and what they have sitting in front of them. So I feel like a lot of people that are listening to content online have probably tried a few different tests. So I'm going to throw out some markers for people to look at. First thing that I look at that is a really common set of tests that people bring to me is a CBC, CMP, and then a C-reactive protein. So your CBC is your red and white blood cells. If you see red blood cell count going up, hematocrit going up above the normal range, and you don't live on a mountain, so you live at sea level or near sea level, even in Denver, which is the mile high city, you got to be higher than that. I've got guys at like 9,000 feet that you see red blood cells starting going up. If you see those things going up, oftentimes, in my experience, you have some sort of increased desire for oxygen, which makes sense on a mountain, but it doesn't make sense at sea level unless you're around something that's affecting your ability to bring oxygen in, such as mold toxicity. If you look at the CMP, which is going to have, say, your kidney markers. So we could have your creatine, your BUN, and your GFR. So these are these are kidney markers. If your GFR, which is glomerular filtration rate, going down, the ability for your kidneys to function, you're going down, you're below, say, 80 or below 70. Mold does this a lot, especially if you're under the age of 70, you should be above 90. So mold does this a lot. If your BUN or creatine are both elevated above that marker range in your test, something's attacking your kidney. Likely a toxin can be associated to this. And then the albumin marker, which is also in the CMP, it's a protein. And it's a protein that you naturally have, but when it starts going up, it means your body is under stress. So almost everybody has a CMP. If you've ever done any kind of physical, life insurance exam, anything, you probably have this. If you've ever been to a hospital and they ran your blood, go get that test. Go look at it because it's already been done for you. Albumin above 4.6 for me starts to show that the body has some stress on it. It doesn't mean that you're in mold, but it starts to tell me you have stress on your body. If you're above 5, something is stressing you pretty significantly, because if you look up what albumin does, it goes up when your body is dehydrating. Well, that doesn't mean mold. Well, what does mold do? It causes a bunch of stress. Stress starts to release electrolytes. It starts to release a lot of the water that your body needs to hold those electrolytes. So you're peeing more often. So that tells me your body's under a lot of stress. Well, you can probably tell me if you're stressed out from mental or emotional reasons. And if it's not those, then it's something internal. Toxins and infections are what we're going to be looking at. So these are all hints. Also within blood work, but not very common. You can look up MSH, VIP, C4A. These are uncommon blood tests that can be ran that, if elevated, can show that we have a higher propensity for mold. They're not exact though, so they're not direct mold tests. They can also sometimes go up, specifically C4A and Lyme disease. Now, if we want to get out of the blood testing and go a little bit more into some of the functional tests, which I love, the organic acid test for me is just a knockout test because it's 76 markers. At least it is from Mosaic Labs. And if you know how to look at these markers, they start giving you signs. So if your Krebs cycle or ketone cycles are off by more than 2 markers, meaning 2 markers are out of the range, I start thinking mold toxicity. If you have oxalates, which can come from mold, plants, or fungus, if they're elevated and you don't eat a very heavy green leafy diet, you probably have mold. If you have significant toxic exposure markers, which I think is, I believe, 59 on the organic acid test from Mosaic. If it's in a different one, you have to just look up toxic exposure markers. Mold is the number one thing that does that in my experience. And then in vitamins I mentioned earlier, if you're not absorbing B12, B2, or B5 appropriately, there's a number of reasons that can affect that genetically, but mold is another big one. And I can't tell you how many people come into my clinic saying, I went to the DNA guy, I went to the doc that does all the DNA, I went and got all my SNPs, and I'm not absorbing based off my SNPs B12. So that's why that's there. And I go, okay, well, that's a very valid reason. That's very possible. But you know what I'm going to do is say, yeah, stay on that B12 right now. But let's double check, because you have these other mold markers, if mold's there. So because of the markers I just mentioned from blood and oat, then I'll go run a mycotoxin urine test. So there's a lot of these out there. Vibrant America, Mosaic, both have great ones. Real Time Lab are probably the top 3 companies out there that I know are doing it. You pee in a cup, send it off, and they're testing to see if mycotoxins are coming out in your urine. Now, just as a brief pivot here, mycotoxins coming out your urine doesn't necessarily mean you're in mold now. It can mean that you were in mold in the past and you're now colonized. So you have organisms living that are inside you. Or it can mean that maybe you're doing a detox because you're doing all these labs, you want to detox. So you already started the detox before you ran the lab and you're flushing it out. If you're not doing that, then you're either in it or it's growing in you. So I wanted to pivot to those for a moment. But if you run that mycotoxin test and it's coming out and you get a positive and your B vitamins are off, more often than not, when we remove the stress from your body, then take you off of the B vitamin and then retest you months later, now you're processing that B vitamin perfectly. Even though your genetics showed that you might not be able to perfectly, when the stress is removed, your body starts actually operating at a much, much higher level. So it's not a forever B vitamin in most of the cases I run into.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I think that was very well explained and very comprehensive, and actionable too, right? I mean, the easiest test or the test that you've had done before, CBC, CMP, you can easily pick up on those markers. The organic acids test is another urine test. And really, I think of it as like a shotgun approach because of all of the information that you're able to capture in that one test, and then be able to deduce from that whether or not we need to go down the mycotoxin route or some other route. So very well explained. I appreciate it. From the checking your environment perspective, like looking for mold, are there particular ways that people should do that? Should they just, look for those black spots? Should they look for the, water leaking under the sink or the roof? Or there are other tests that you like to run to analyze the environment?
There's a level of expertise that comes along with finding mold toxicity. And I do think people, first off, should do a self-inspection of their home. They need to know their own home. They need to know where the weak points are, doing a little bit of education themselves. I have a online course on my website I built out that is the starter kit is what we call it. And it just gives you a bit to look for all around in your home, things to do for your health that is just the beginning phases. It's not going into the weeds of now we know you have Lyme or we know you have mold toxicity in your body. Let's treat. It's giving you the beginning phases. So looking around the windowsills for cracking or peeling paints, going to all around your house looking for if there were water spots, possibly spots that were repainted from a previous owner that could be mold, going into your attic or looking up if you can see the beams in your home, if there's any white spots, brown spots, black spots that stand out that are not supposed to be there. Going to where anywhere you have water running through the walls and making sure that there's no soft spots or any kind of watermarks around those areas, going to your bathroom and your showers and looking under the sink where water runs, looking around the sinks to see if it's getting on the cabinets or if there was ever a leak at any point, going into your shower and just really doing a good job making sure that the caulking is healthy and there's not mold that just grows overnight every single time you wipe it off. Because in that case, there's probably a source that it's coming from. It's not just growing slowly over time. Because I can tell you in my shower, we'll get a little mold if we didn't clean for a month, if we leave water sitting, but not overnight, not in a few days. And I have lived in places where that happened. And when you tear off the tile, behind it's a bunch of black mold. So looking around your home yourself is a really great thing so that you start becoming accustomed to what your home looks like. And then you also know what to look for if something is starting to go wrong and where to look for it. And I honestly do a 6 month checkup in my home. I just roam around every 6 months. I take a little gander, make sure that everything passes and I'm happy. Now, beyond that, who you choose to do your real true inspections is important because that guy that you hire to go do a real estate inspection for your house when you want to buy a home that sticks one singular machine in the middle of your living room and says, come back in 24 hours, we'll talk. That doesn't work. That is useless. That's a great way to sell a house. That is not a great way to actually figure out if mold is going to affect your health. Now, if that person put one of those in several different rooms, then went and did an air sample in the cavities in the wall, so went up through, say, a plug-in up into cavities and then tested there. Also did multiple dust samples, so actually took like little Swiffers, swiped up dust, looked at it under a microscope or sent it off to the lab, took moisture meters, roamed around your home, checking for increased moisture in walls or areas, and used a infrared gun to shine at the walls to make sure that there is not a difference in cavity spaces as far as the way it looks on that infrared. If it's got mold, it changes the look because you see spots. So if you had somebody do all of that, that is an appropriate type of mold inspection. That's usually done by somebody we call a building biologist. So they're just a far more educated, more in-depth and detailed person when it comes to mold toxicity. And yes, as you can imagine, doing all of that versus just one in the middle of the room is going to be a different level of cost too. So before I typically take you from home inspection yourself to building biologist inspection, there's a test in the middle, and there's a few versions of this: the dust test by Brian Kerr and his team, or the ERMI test, which you'll probably need a provider to be able to actually interpret that to you, because it is a lot of random numbers on a sheet if you don't know what you're looking at. But an ERMI test is a dust sample collection that you will take from 10 different rooms, send it off. And if it comes back with a spore count above the norm for your area, then it will give you a high mark. And then that tells you, okay, yeah, there's probably something going on in my home. Spending the money for a building biologist is worth it.
Yeah, yeah, amen to that. All great points. And so, I've got my own little story about mold, and I'll try to keep it short here, is that we started to feel some symptoms. Ironically, what you mentioned earlier, my wife more so than me. And one day I'm doing the visual inspection, and I look down, and just outside the shower on the sheetrock is a little black spot. And I'm like, I've never seen that before. I wipe it off. I come back 2 days later. It's back again, a little bit bigger. I cut that piece of sheetrock out and look behind the sheetrock. I don't see anything. There's nothing there. I'm like, I know there's water somehow involved in this. So I cut that piece out. I replace it. A week later, it's back on that new piece of sheetrock, even bigger. And so it ended up being a leak in the shower. We had a like a fiberglass base that had a small crack in it, and didn't see the crack before. And then all of a sudden we started peeling back the tile on the floor, and almost half of our large master bathroom was black mold. So it can be, and we were lucky to be able to find that black spot, because this is probably 13, 14 years ago. I didn't know how to test the environment. We didn't have those available mycotoxin tests to look at your urine and see. But to be able to pick up on that, then we were able to remediate the whole home and do it appropriately, which is a whole nother course in and of itself, and then be able to recover from it. So it's real. I mean, these cases are real, and when you experience it, like you have, and you've seen it through clients, it can be a daunting process, but an important one to be able to recover your health.
And I want to just tax onto that. When you're removing sheetrock or you're trying to wipe off mold, first of all, bleach just pisses it off.
Yeah, that's
It
right.
just makes it mad. That's not going to solve your problem. So don't listen to anybody telling you, just go wipe it off. It's got to be cut out. If you have an area that has a visible mold spot on it, that's a million colonies. There's literally a million little spores colonized into that area if you can visually see it. Before that, before you can visually see it, it's 100,000, and it's in that sheetrock in areas that maybe you can't see it, like you were experiencing, where you didn't see it on any of the rest. Also, when you cut out an area of mold, if you already solved the problem and now you're cutting it out, you have to cut 2 foot from visibility. So if you see a spot this big, you're cutting out this much on each side, right? Like it's 2 foot around big circle. So it's a huge piece of sheetrock that's coming out when you see mold toxicity. So those are just some of the basic rules for good remediators. And beyond that, the worst thing that you could do for someone that's sick, maybe it's not the worst thing, but it's pretty bad, is go in and just start wrecking out mold
Yes.
without proper containment practices.
Right.
Because if you cut out sheetrock, it sends dust everywhere anyway. Now, if that dust is contaminated with mycotoxins and molds, you're just making a big cloud of mycotoxins and spores that are going to circulate now through the house. And it can cause bigger problems and actually set people off. And I see this quite often when that happens. So what you need to do is either hire somebody that knows what the heck they're doing, or create a negative pressure containment area where you plastic off, you don't allow the dust to get out, you have HEPA air filtration in there. And then anything that you've cut out, you actually bag up first, vacuum up first before you pull the containment down so it doesn't contaminate the rest of your house. I've got plenty of DIYers that I've worked with. I try to give them as many of the key points there, like I just did, as possible. By no means am I a remediator or an expert remediator. That's just definitely not my specialty. But I've learned a little bit from working with a lot of clients.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so we've focused and we've dove down a deep rabbit hole into the mycotoxins and mold. When we're talking about just toxins in general, mycotoxins included, what are some of the things that you do to help people get it out of your body?
Well, the first thing is you can't retox when we're trying to detox. So you've got to create a safe environment. That is the very first thing. Like that thing I talked about earlier, my starter kit, that is exactly what that was designed for. That's exactly what I do with every client as the very first part of our note. I don't jump into here's this fun protocol, go get these IVs, go do an EBU with
Yeah.
ozone, blood cleaning. No, like all that stuff is cool, but you've got to take step one, which is cleaning up your actual environment you live in. And I make it sound overly simple, and it really can be, um, but it's not always easy. So the first thing is your air clean? So check for mold if you have a house or a place that you're living, and then radon if you have a basement. So just check those two things. If that's good, outside of some other very unique experiences that I've had where somebody lived next to a pig farm, or if you live next to a farmer who just likes to not turn off the pesticides as they're spraying over your house, radon and mold are probably your big ones. The second one is food. We need to eat a whole food and organic diet. Now, you can be more specialized than whole food diet, but the big thing is to avoid processed foods and eat organic, because there are so many studies out there that show if you are not eating organic, the amount of toxin coming out of your urine is 2 to 4 times higher than that of a person eating organic. Is organic perfect? No, but it's just a heck of a lot better. And then from there, we go into water, your water supply. Many people are using that plastic thing that they bought from the store to filter their water, or they're using the refrigerator. Not good enough. In 99% of municipalities, the water requires you to, at minimum, get a reverse osmosis filter. If not reverse osmosis because you have radioactive elements in your water, you need a distiller. And I don't care what the label of your machine says. I don't care what the sales agent said. I don't care if the Google search said that reverse osmosis removes uranium. I have not seen one reverse osmosis system actually get the job done and a client where we've tested them for that. Sorry. Distiller for radioactive elements. Go to ewg.org, go to their water database, look up your zip code, figure out if that's a problem for you. If so, you need a distiller. If it's not radioactive, meaning cesium, radium, or uranium, RO systems, which are a lot easier to maintain. So I get it. That's what we want to have if we can. Make sure your water's clean, right? So air, food, water, those are simple, not always easy because you got to take the steps to make them that way, but they're simple concepts that if you make your environment safe, then those toxins aren't going into your body. And in most people's bodies, they're going to start to release them even naturally on their own. I still want to do some detox work with them too. But what I haven't hit on is hygiene products. If you're not doing this right now, there's numerous different companies that have created databases of hygiene products. EWG has one. Since I already sent you there, just go download their app, Healthy Living. You can take your phone out. You simply just scan barcodes, and that barcode tells you what's in there. I want to be below 4 on their rating system. So it's 0 to 10. I want to be below 4 on toxicity so that I'm not putting toxins on me. Because if you're using many companies, lotion, shampoos, conditioners, you're putting parabens, which are endocrine disruptors. So they're going to throw off your body's ability to create estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. It's going to throw off your body's ability to absorb thyroid metabolism hormone. And if you don't have that coming into your body appropriately, what's happening? You're aging. You're breaking down. Your longevity is going to be squashed. And it doesn't matter how many red lights you put on your skin or blue lights, because here we go, blue and red in the same little thing here for my pain. If I have it, and it changes colors too. So I got rid of the blue and added some extra red light. It doesn't matter how much of this you're going to do. If you're bringing toxins in, you have to take step one, which is what I tell my clients. And then dental and implants. If you have any implants of any kind, dental or otherwise, if you have any mercury amalgams, any root canals, we need to get those checked out by a professional. And I don't mean just your average everyday dentist. I mean a biological dentist who will actually do looking in there. So that's step one. Figure out if your environment, your dental work is safe. And if you've done that, then we can go detox. And first thing I detox is your emotional health. I don't do it. I'm not a therapist, but we need to make sure that you have a limbic, somatic, and vagal nerve training program for your day to day. So if you don't have a morning routine or a night routine, you need to do something that re-regulates you from the craziness of your day. Because if you're not doing that, it puts you in fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, what happens? Let's just imagine if you're running from a bear, what is your number one priority in that moment? Taking the next step. It's getting one more step, right? One more step, one more step. It is not detoxing, healing, recovering, digesting, getting your skin to look all beautiful, feeling good, having energy, having creative thoughts. That's not what you're doing. You're running. That's it. If you live in mold, you're running. That's it. If you're drinking radioactive water, you're running. That's it. So the nervous system, if it's been doing that for a long period of time, gets stuck. It creates a habit. So even after you've made your environment safe, it's still stuck in not safe feelings. So we've got to do the limbic and somatic work. I send people to Primal Trust all the time for this. It's an online program. It's inexpensive. It can be done as a individual by yourself, a group, or you can hire a coach. So doing that allows for your body now to be in a safe place and to feel safe. And when we're in that position, now we can detox. Now we can get those toxins out. And the way that we do that can become so much more simple. I don't have to go invest in EDTA or DMSA IVs because your body now is in a state where it is focused on being able to detox and regenerate tissue. So what I tend to do, and I have an order to this because after a decade of working with people and more than 10,000 people worked with through my clinic, and not just by me, because I can't see all of them. We've got 5 different practitioners that are full-time and going. So if you need help, let us know. But what we're doing is we make sure that one, if there are parasites in the way, we remove them because they block up your pathways. 2, if there's bacteria in the way in your digestive tract, so we have any digestive symptoms, that we get that re-regulated, because as you start pushing toxins through, it's going to mess up your gut. It's going to throw off your microbiome. You're not going to be able to remove the toxins nearly as well because they're going to get stuck and recirculate due to your leaky gut. So parasites, bacteria, mold that's colonizing to your body. Then we go into environmental toxins that are associated to the radioactive side, because those tend to be the bigger ones. Then we go into the toxins that you got out of your shampoos, your conditioners, the things you got out of your food, the pesticides. Then we get into heavy metals, then yeast and viruses. And we go through that order, which may change based off of you, your labs, your unique situation. You know, if you have a big metal taste in your mouth, we're going to pivot and grab some of that metal even earlier on than what I just said. But that is the common order that we go through. And we tend to use 5 or less supplements. Because you know how many people come in with 30 supplements taken?
Amen.
And they're all great things. They're all really good stuff. But your digestive tract gets confused, or it just gets to the point where it's like, well, I don't know what I need to absorb first. There's so much to choose from. And I always tell people, I go, if you have one person talking to you, you do a really good job understanding and articulating back what they're saying, right? Yeah. What if you have 30? Can you understand what all 30 are doing? If you walk into a kindergarten classroom and they all start yelling at you, do you know what every one of them is saying? No, you don't. The same thing happens to your gut. So if you're that person here listening right now and you're like, my longevity protocol requires 30 supplements, you have really expensive poop. You're missing something. So curate down what you're going to do to around 5, maybe 7. And what we're doing is when we're detoxing, we're focusing on get the nutrients that we know you're deficient in, add in detox support like milk thistle, carbons, NACs, glutathiones, which can all be in one supplement often. And then bring in the antimicrobial or bring in the binder that's associated with the thing you're trying to move. And it can be that simple and it can come out and I can retest and we can see progress. So it doesn't have to be complicated when you do it in a manner that makes sense that your body will respond to.
Yeah, I love that. I love that also that you're really focused on handling the emotional mindset, the past traumas first, because that is often the barrier that is overlooked because, you know, us as practitioners, we're not trained. Most of us are not trained in that space. And so being able to refer to somebody or a group, I think you mentioned Primal, what was it again?
Primal trust.
Primal Trust. Another one that's out there is you know, a lot of Annie Hopper's work is also very good that we'll utilize occasionally for childhood trauma stuff. So I think that's great. And then that stepwise approach to being able to address this, and you know, whether it be parasites, bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract, moving on to the specific toxins, waiting for the heavy metals last, because all of this work that you're doing beforehand, it sounds like you're preparing the body to be able to handle that next thing, whether it be, you know, heavy metals or all the way towards, you know, the viruses, because you're improving your immune system, you're improving and downregulating inflammation, you're improving those drainage pathways that help the toxins get out.
Yeah. It is so important for you to find your order, which is
Mhm.
what a practitioner does. That's what an expert in this does, is they should know, and it should be custom to every single person based off of their needs, the order that you're going to go in. And order matters because if I try to go and detox metal before I've removed the parasites, the metal is going to start coming out of your cells when you start giving it glutathione and C60s and iodines and all the different things that we can use. It's going to start coming out. And then it's going to get to your lymph where maybe you have parasites, or your gut or your liver where parasites are. And it's not going to be able to make it the rest of the way. Those parasites are blocking you up. It's going to recirculate. You're going to have more symptoms and potentially create more damage if you do this out of order. So order is really, really important when it comes to healing.
Yeah. Amen. I think the, you know, one thing that we really focus on is, you know, people will often try to push detoxification, and that, you know, a Herx reaction is something that's normal. And, you know, our stance is really reduce that Herx response. We do not want you to have that Herx response. And if you do, which is a Herx response for those that may not know, is when toxins will elevate in the system, we're not able to clear it or drain it as quickly, as efficiently as possible. We're going to have an increase in symptoms. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. And that is a clue to whether or not you are creating enough, you know, clearance in that pathway to remove that toxin, or if it's being more aggravating. So I certainly appreciate the how simply you broke all of that down, and the stepwise process that you approach it.
Well, in a Herxheimer reaction, it's something that for years and years and years, as you said, people just push you right through it.
Right.
For me, I say, look, if you look at the studies of hermetic stress, which is stresses that help to rebuild the body, that like going to the gym and lifting weights, you don't want to lift till you tear the muscle. You want to lift until you get a little bit of stress. That is something that you can rebuild. So even within detoxing, if you have a 10, 15, 20% increase in symptoms, when we're going through a mold protocol, well, there's a little bit of a cost to
Mm.
detoxing. It takes energy to do the process. So a minimal increase in symptoms, I'm okay with. It's not what I want for you. And we're gonna add some detox supports and minerals and nutrients to help support you going through that. But a minimal increase is okay. When you're 50% increase, now you're just putting yourself back into fight or flight. Means again, you're running from a bear. You're
Mhm.
not worried about detoxing anymore. So now your body's locking up and we're not going to see the success that we'd like to. And we may be creating more problems. But for those of you out there that are saying, why Herx with about anything? Is it a Herx or is it a histamine response? And this is the question I always pose to people. I go, if you took one single speck of a supplement, like you open it up and you took one granule, And now you have a reaction. That is not a Herx reaction. That is not Herxheimer. You're not septic. That is a histamine response, which means that you skip step 1 and 2 of what I talked about doing, which is getting you into a safe environment and then making sure that you feel safe in your environment because your immune system now is overreacting and we're having a lot of these reactions. So many people do have what they consider to be Herxheimer reactions that are not actually Herxheimer reactions. They are histamine responses. They are a dysregulated immune system that needs to be managed.
Now, it's an important differentiation. I appreciate that. So in thinking of this, the toxin, the bioaccumulation of these toxins, the detoxification process, making your environment safe, making you feel safe in your environment, and then going through this stepwise process. And it's important to longevity. I mean, at what point are you refocusing instead of, on toxins solely to really, okay, how do we improve, the quote unquote biological age? Is there a point when you're doing that?
Well, I think throughout everything that we're doing here, you're going to improve biological age. If you are living in a toxic environment, your biological age is going to be crap. You're going to have C-reactive protein elevated, stress hormones off the charts. Your body's not going to be happy. Same thing with if you aren't dealing with trauma and mental emotional stress, right? Like if you're tracking your HRV, which I've done, and I think it's so much fun to do this. And I'll be honest, every now and then I like to go out and have a drink with friends. When I do that, it crashes my HRV.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol is not good for you. It is a toxin. So I've done some experiments. Like I'll put my ring on, my Aura ring. You go out, you have a drink, you come home, your body temperature is elevated, your HRV is not good, all of this. Well, what if I add in Tudka, milk thistle, and a biological binder, like biotoxin binder? Well, I've done it and it improved my HRV after having a drink. So I was experimenting on myself to see what happens here. Now, I'm not suggesting people drink, it is a toxin, but you can start to see using these methods of wearables what's affecting your body. So as I go through my program with people, we remove toxins, age and HRV go up. Biological age, I guess, technically goes down, so you feel younger. HRV goes up. When you do nervous system work and you regulate your nervous system and you're not in that fight or flight, now you reach REM sleep better. You get deep sleep better. You're not in a constant state of awareness where you can't reach that level of sleep. And now your sleep scores are terrible. Mine were for a long time. And as I did more of this work, you start seeing HRV sleep scores going up. And when you get into detoxing and you're removing that workload from your body, instead of me having to say, okay, we ran a micronutrients on you and you're deficient in B12, B5, magnesium, vitamin D, and the list is a mile long, I'm saying, let's remove the things that disallow you from processing these appropriately from food. And now what happens? Well, when you run that micronutrient after you've done your detox and you removed all these organisms, all of a sudden the nutrients are absorbed and they're being used appropriately. You're not bringing in supplements to fix that. So we're not just doing Band-Aids. What's this do for you? Well, one, it saves you your pocketbook later on because you're not taking 20, 30 pills a day. But it also saves your digestive tract the effort of going through and processing all those on top of your food, which then reduces your biological age even more. So when I'm talking to people, I'm like, do you want to actually change your body or do you just want to stick Band-Aids on it? Because so many people in the longevity world, the biohacking world, just keep putting Band-Aids on everything. And I'm like, well, cool, but why don't we just rip the Band-Aid off, solve the problem, and then you're going to have a double down because you removed the issue and now your body's getting the nutrients and the things you were putting in. So now when you're doing your red lights, now when you're doing your hyperbaric chambers, you're improving physiological function beyond your baseline, not trying to get you back to baseline.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and that is such a huge thing, right? We have so many different biohacking tools and strategies available. But often you're right, we'll have somebody come in with 10 different biohacking tools that they're utilizing at this time, but they haven't gotten to the root issue. So pivoting into that, I mean, we saw the light that you had. I'm sure there's going to be multiple people that want to know, number one, what is it? What's the brand? What does it do for you? And then are there any other, if you have a couple of tools that you really like to use and especially recommend to clients that build upon that baseline level for them?
Oh, we can do this, like a little scary thing here.
Yeah, right.
There you go. Uh, so I have a lot of tools that I love, and red light is one of them. I have probably 6 different red lights. I have them in my office, under my desk, in my hand, in my shower. So the biggest thing that I do is I try to create biohacks that I'm going to use, and not biohacks that are going to collect space and dust.
Mold dust.
So what I did is when I was building my shower, I actually cut a hole in the wall and I put a glass panel on the back side of the wall. There's a little opening door, and I have my panel inside this hole. So every time I get in the shower, the only light that is turned on is my red light.
Oh, sick.
So I have a full size panel, if you can imagine, 48 inches, that is right here. And then the shower head's here. So I'm facing it when I'm showering. And what it has, it has multiple different light frequencies for different purposes. So based off what you want to do, look up light frequencies of red lights, and they're going to tell you like blue light's a little bit for skin, red light, certain frequencies are going to be more for healing tissue. Others are going to be for mitochondria. Others can even be back to collagen production. So it just depends on what your target is going to be. The one I have in there is mito red light. I know there's new technology since I got that one because it's 5, 6 years old now, with more different frequencies than I have. I only have 2, which is 850 and 660. No blue light in there. So as I'm getting older here, I'm 38 years old. I might have to get a little blue light for my skin healing as I'm in there. Now, so that's that one. I also have soft ones from Therasage, and those can wrap around my head. They're just soft. I can put them in bed with me. This one I got from a company here at the last conference, and I can't remember the name, but it's just a little handheld that I can take with me when I'm traveling, and it's great for pain. I actually bought it for my integrator. So she's my right hand, and she had neck pain. So I was like, all right. I was walking around the conference and I'd go, oh, this will be perfect. We can just put that on for pain. So those are some of those biohacks there. I'm definitely using some peptides these days. I use BPC 157 quite often for pain. I actually just had to order a new batch because I got a forearm pain from carrying around my chunky little kid. It's 32 pounds and 33 inches at 18 months. So he still wants to carry it around a lot, and he is massive, and it is so much fun. But my forearm hurts because I'm always carrying on my right side. I got to switch arms now.
Right, right.
So I'm gonna be doing the BPC because it's an increased healing rate. I've done CJC for growth hormone for muscle development for regeneration. So peptides, red light are probably my top 2 biohacks because they're pretty easy to get and easy to use. And then I do some shockwave therapy, which is a technology that you can usually find within your chiropractor, your physical therapist type clinic. And it is what they're deeming a stem cell machine. So you take shock waves and shoot it into your tissues, and it generates a percussive response that irritates the tissue. It doesn't damage it, but irritates it. And then stem cells go to that area. So for my joint recovery, this is something that I've really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, that therapy has really made quite a difference for a lot of our clients, man. So I appreciate the recognition there. The final question that I've been asking all of the participants in this summit that I'm interviewing is, what is your ideal chronological age, or what's your biological age that you want to live out your life at?
I hear this question, and my answer is really, I want to live as long as I live well.
Yeah.
Right. I want to live as long as I can go for hikes. I remember being in Iceland, and this couple that had to be in their 80s were still hiking up the mountain on a vacation. So I want to live as long as I live well. That's why I'm doing shockwave and red light. My grandma's 96, so I at least got to outlive her. She's still kicking and running around, going on vacations, going on cruises. So I'd love to make it to 105, 110, still going on vacations because that's what matters to me. I want to enjoy it. I want to spend time with my family and my grandkids. My dad right now is at my house out brush hogging in the back. He's taking my kid on razor rides. He's 72. So yeah, that's what's important to me.
Yeah, good. And that has been the common theme here. It's all about the health span. And that's what we're all about with longevity. Final thing here before we sign off here is if people are interested in learning more about you, following you, or potentially becoming a client of yours because you operate virtually and have multiple practitioners in your office, where is the best place that they can find out that information and get in touch with you?
Just look up Dr. Jaban, J-A-B as in boy, A-N, Moore on really any of the platforms. We primarily post to Instagram, but we're on TikTok, Facebook. We have our website where we're putting out information every day. Because when I went through my health journey of trying to get well from chronic illness, the hardest thing was to find reliable, usable information. So that's one of our goals, is just to be able to put that out no matter who you want to see, so you can at least have an idea of where you're going.
Oh, awesome. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time. You did an excellent job today for us, breaking everything down and keeping it simple and really giving actionable steps. So it's greatly appreciated, Jaban.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Everyone have a good one. Live well.
Thanks for listening to the Longevity Leaders Podcast. Our Longevity Leaders community is on mission to transform 100 million lives by 2040. If you enjoyed this show, please share this with somebody that you know, especially another doctor or physician, but also click that follow button. Until next time, stay strong and live long.